First painting I'm going to show you is one of my early self-portraits. I'm wearing a scarab necklace, which I bought from a pair of very attractive gay guys named Lee and Alex, who'd spent a brief time with Salvador Dali, and I'm holding an invisible cat on my shoulder whom I never got around to painting. I'm reminded by looking at this image of looking in the mirror after school when I was about 11. My hair was always really short, and thinking, if I'm lucky, I'll grow up to look like Marlon Brando. But the way chances go, I'll probably grow up looking like Rod Steiger. But there's like a tiny trace of mustache on that upper lip. Inside of me is a mean little man trying to get out. Zoran della Robbia, that was his name. Lovely little artist from someplace far away. Got a little crush on him when I visited France the first time and painted this very Egon Schiele-esque, a drawing of him which I ended up using as an invitation to an art show, minus the figure of myself enveloping him. I first showed you Pink Boy as a drawing in the illustration section, and this is the finished painting. I'm particularly interested in the textures on the Madonna, whom I quite loved. She's actually technically the Virgin of Guadalupe. And the features and the richness of the floor and the little florals in the room are quite fun, the little china dog. So I thought you might be interested in seeing how the finished painting looked. The preliminary drawing is really quite exact, and I used to do that quite a bit. Here we are at the entrance to Death's Drive-In. This is a painting dedicated to my dear flatmate, Rob, who was an armed robber and a very successful one for quite a few years until he got a bit lazy. He had a marvelous mop of platinum hair and looked pretty much exactly like he does in the painting, and I thought he needed a girlfriend who suited him just right, so I think they're quite happy together. Rob, where are you now? Moon Dance. This particular image is based on an earlier drawing from my comics period, which is entitled Portrait of a Rapist. Obviously, it would have had to have been drawn from memory. Even today, rapists don't like being caught on cell phones. Paradise Head. I came back from a miserable trip to France and just wanted to immerse myself in a warm yellow, pink, and orange sunset, where I could imagine birds lazily singing in the beaten copper sockets of my eyes, my head forever floating stationary in a sleepy lagoon. You are here, just like it says on the map. The hills of glorious Marin County in the sun, a lovely Japanese bridge from the tea garden, an English country cottage, a gypsy caravan, a little Tibetan palace of happiness with a beetle for a door. Up on the hill, a classic stone shack with a little surprised face, and a beautiful little Thai house with stained-glass windows, and an odd barber pole with silver lattice work. Down below, a snow globe that you can sit in, and a little spinney, and a weeping willow tree. Trivia is based on the Roman word for 3 paths. At the top is an image of me from an old photograph. At the bottom, in golden clothes, is Tina, my friend from California, and next to her is Dido. Tina is very much a golden girl. Her mother named her Tiensen, which means golden heart, and she has a little happy hemp farm, and she's a very jolly little girl now. All around them are images from our lives. Tina loves tigers. Dido had a childhood doll. Her daughters are all depicted as little deer in a pool. And in the background next to me is a Golden Gate Bridge and a breed of flower that has special golden leaves. And in the very background is an ancestral tribute to the old ones based on thread paintings from South America. This was one of the first paintings that I did after I finished the book Lost Girls with Alan Moore. And I think you'll find if you look closely that you can see a kind of chicken foot-shaped pattern on the top image. I very much like texture on skin. I get very tired of just mixing up the colors with a little bit of shadow. Coming out by day on the bride green lawn. This was the painting I did after Alan and I got married, and the figure dancing with us is Lucia Joyce, who is buried in a local graveyard in Northampton. And I realized after I'd painted this that the three of us stand for three different kinds of art or three different kinds of learning, the kinetic, the visual, and the audial. And the story behind the fact that everybody's dancing in the graveyard, and I actually imagined that people were having a tea party there and women were wearing beautiful frilly dresses and big hats. It was a lovely day, and it is a beautiful graveyard. I've taken lots of pictures of it in the spring when the flowers are out, and there are little children's toys and things around the bottom of the picture, little fairies and pinwheels and things like that. I'm quite fond of this picture. I keep saying that, don't I? The conversation. Man and woman at odds, struggling as ever to understand each other and failing. He is using the powers of Hod as described in the Kabbalah, the power of language as exemplified by the bird-headed creature Thoth. She is emotionally reactive, and they hold up their symbols of each other and go at it. He looks away. She wants a fight. The fountain behind them is spewing bile. And what more can I say? A delicate balance. A little portrait of my quandary about marriage painted a few years ago, just before we tied the knot. The lion was my future husband in the picture, and to my right, his two leopard cub daughters. I am the little black house cat who is bravely pretending to be the ringmaster of my own fate. Red, green, amber. A personal version of Tara, the wheel, the cycle of reincarnation. It includes the worlds of illusion, cultism, self-obsession, the arts, the animal kingdom, and in the center, the Kellogg's rooster, king of the dung heap, Porky Pig, the undiscerning sensualist, and the snake energy in the form of the pound sign. Notice the Virgin logo on the blimp in its golden world of materialist splendor. And there's a couple of little fun things to this side. There's the Big Brother camera room with the all-seeing eye, and little George Bush at the bottom of the painting. He was still in office when I painted it. He's trying to get out the wrong door. If you'll notice at the top, there's a navy blue backgrounded one with an elderly gent in red bent over, Mr. Peter Stringfellow struggling along in his world of nightclubs. The next 6 oval portraits are characters Dorothy, Wendy, and Alice from The Wizard of Oz, Peter Pan, and Alice in Wonderland. The first image is of Wendy as a young girl with ivy in her hair. The second image is of Alice with her long golden hair. The third is of Dorothy with flowers in her hair. The fourth image is of Alice as a mature woman. The fifth is of Wendy in the dark with a pan figure walking past. And the last figure is Dorothy, the age she was in the book, with a pretty little shiny face. Flower Child is the title of this picture. I drew it this way because our lives are centipedal. We leave a trail of all our acts and states of awareness, which follow us everywhere to our last days. Infancy to enlightenment, I have placed little steps of awareness here, with a background of my home city, Golden Gate Bridge, Lombard Street, and Golden Gate Park and its tea garden. There's even a tiny little rat at the bottom playing with the infant child, and at the top is the point of enlightenment where the lucky human gets to turn into Tara, the ever-forgiving green goddess. The Magus. This is my husband. In his made-up rider's garb, I designed this nice outfit for him. He's standing in front of different bits of his living room. There's a drawing of his partially finished to one side, and a little statuette I gave him to another side. A couple of puppets that I brought him from Prague, a mask from Venice, a troll from Norway, an Egyptian statue from the museum, masks, bits of stars from his ceiling, and lovely little blue lines in his beard. I particularly like his eyes and his hands in this picture, because his eyes are like something out of a weird fairy tale, and his hands are exuding bright yarn-like lines of energy. She's the butterfly of the burlicue, the lovely stage dancer. This is a study in spectrum play, just a kind of a color study, but I also really like plump burlesque dancers, and the texture, I think, between her legs is particularly nice. This and the painting that follows it are based on a story I wrote for a magazine called Dodgem Logic that we were involved with, and it was about the fact that I used to go to strip clubs a lot, so I really like looking at women on stage in various costumes dancing around. I was the only woman at the time that was ever going to those clubs. It was me and a whole lot of men, and a woman standing shivering on stage going, "Oh, there's a lady in the audience. Would you like to ask a question? It's so nice to see you here." The Three Graces. Carrying on from Butterfly of the Burlicue, another textural study of just the beauty of neon light and feathers and shiny costumes and high heels and beautiful satiny hair. What a gorgeous image. It's so ancient. It's so hypnotic. It's so lovely. Et in Arcata Ego. This painting was triggered by two things. First, the fact that my bike was stolen, and second, the memory of the night I was attacked and threatened with murder in the middle of a nasty, mushy waste ground when I was just 18. I imagined that an angel surrounded by blue flames had saved my life, and in the painting she has placed me on a bicycle and we escape the man waving a plank who was covered in red fire. It was a terrible night, but as you can see, I had a magic bicycle, and the angel was marvelous. And it happened in a town called Arcata. Contemplating Apocalypse. The lovely, quiet, placid Japanese geisha gazing out the window at a gigantic Mothra heading straight for her lovely paper-covered house. She has a wonderfully scary dog accompanying her with fangs. He is one of the nicest things about the painting. And her body is covered with mysterious scroll work. The Japanese response to their tsunami disasters bespeaks an extraordinary culture of mysterious self-control. I began this painting before Japan was devastated. I tend to think it captures the otherworldly calm manifested in a people who quietly organized to care for each other in the literal eye of a perpetual storm of increasing complexity and consequences. Las Mujeres means the mothers in Spanish. This is a very typical group of images on the outside of buildings all over the Mission District in San Francisco. Beautiful goddesses of the sea, mothers with their head wraps and colorful earrings, snakes and yucca plants. It's all very tropical and incredibly colorful and beautifully patterned. These murals are just not to be believed, and they're everywhere in the Mission District. And that's where most of the cartoonists all lived. Now, there are people in the windows and who look like they're standing outside the windows in the painting as well. They're groups of my friends that I went dancing with and that I grew up with and that I drew with and drank with, went wild with, and enjoyed costume parties with. It's a celebration of my life in San Francisco and the warmth of the Mission District. Here we have the kindly ones. The original painting of this was done just after my mother died when I was 23, and it was burnt in a warehouse by a group of cultists. And for many years, I missed the painting. I should tell you which person my mother is. She's the one in the crazy hat with the mismatched boob embroidery, and she and her friends are sitting in a place called the Tonga Room, which was one of the many tiki bars that were popular in the 50s and the 60s. I, as a child of 8 or so, have just walked into the room, and they're looking at me as if to say, "Get the hell out of here, kid." I love the Coit Tower in the background, very phallic, a real thing. It was contributed by Mrs. Coit to her favorite group of men, the volunteer firemen of San Francisco. And that yellow building sits on top of a hill to this day. It may not be yellow, but artistic license. I call this the tutelary deity of abortion. The Tibetan Buddhists believe that when you die, you go to a windowless room made of iron, and there you meet your tutelary demon, the representative of the dark in yourself that you didn't address or take care of while you were alive. And there you meet your tutelary demon, which dances before you. And if you haven't prepared for that event and that tutelary demon, then perhaps that small, minute agglomeration of the white drop and the red drop, which is the representative of you, which is carried through the underworld and back into life again, may not survive. So the whole point of a tutelary demon is that you know it while you're alive. You face it, you understand it, and you receive its teachings. And although they have very ferocious faces, they're not meant to be frightening. They are meant to help you relax and be calm when you see the ferocity of the things you have not taken care of properly.